All right, welcome. Today we're going to dig into this really simple but honestly pretty powerful story. It's one that reveals a kind of framework for success. It's really a tale about finding your own path to mastery. And believe it or not, it all kicks off with a feeling I bet we've all had.
Yeah, you know that feeling, don't you? Where you look at a friend, maybe a coworker, and they are just effortlessly brilliant at something. And you're sitting there thinking, man, why can't I be that good? It's a feeling we've all had, for sure. And that is exactly where our story begins today.
So let's meet our main character, David. He's 12, and this kid absolutely lives and breathes soccer. I mean, on the field, he's a total star. But in the classroom, it is a completely different story, especially when it comes to math. See, his close friend, Matt, is a legit math genius who just aces every test, and it leaves David feeling, well, pretty frustrated and kind of defeated.
Okay, so David's dad sees how frustrated he is and decides to step in, but he doesn't just give him some generic pep talk. Nope. Instead, he offers to teach him three really important lessons, and each one is wrapped up in its own little challenge. And this first one, it starts with a pretty surprising request.
All right, so lesson one is all about finding your strengths. It's about finding the right place to start. You know, shifting your whole perspective away from what you don't have to what you already have. And for David, this whole thing kicks off with a simple game.
So, what's the challenge? Simple. Invite Matt, the math whiz, to play soccer. Now, David's a little confused by this, right? But he's also curious to see where his dad is going with it. So, the next afternoon, the two friends head out to the soccer field. And the result? Well, it was pretty much what you'd expect. David absolutely dominated the game. He scores 3 goals, easy. Meanwhile, Matt is struggling, constantly losing the ball. But this totally predictable outcome, it held the key to the very first lesson. So after the game, David's dad explains the whole point. He says, look, Matt might be a genius in class, but you're a powerhouse on the field. See, success doesn't start by trying to be good at everything. It starts by recognizing and really embracing what you are already uniquely good at. Okay, so lesson 2 is all about the power of enjoyable practice. If step 1 is just figuring out what you're good at, then step 2 has to be understanding how you get good in the first place. I mean, why was David so good at soccer and Matt so good at math? Well, this next challenge is going to reveal the answer. So for this second lesson, David's dad gives him another task. He says, go to school and just watch Matt. That's it. But specifically, he tells him, I want you to keep a tally of every single time you see Matt interacting with numbers all day long. And what David found was actually pretty fascinating. Matt wasn't just doing his homework. No, he was solving number puzzles for fun during recess. He was instantly calculating change at the store. He was even counting the petals on a flower. For Matt, math wasn't some chore. It was a game he was playing, all day, every day. And this is what revealed the secret ingredient to mastery: enjoyable practice. See, because Matt was just naturally motivated. He just genuinely loved numbers. He was practicing all the time without it ever feeling like work. So it's not about forcing yourself through these grueling, awful tasks. It's about finding the joy that makes the practice, well, feel more like play. And that brings us to our third and final lesson. Passion is the fuel. This one is maybe the most critical lesson of all, because it answers the question, what happens when you try to succeed at something without that joy? What happens when you just try to brute force it and work harder? So David's dad asks him, hey, how much better at math do you think Matt is? And David guesses, I don't know, maybe 3 times better? All right, his father says, then tomorrow I want you to study math 3 times harder than you normally do. So what was the result? Well, David, he was determined to prove he could do it, right? So he sits down after school. He pushes through 1 hour, then a second, then a third. He's literally tripling his effort. But it didn't lead to some big breakthrough. Now, instead of a breakthrough, David experienced total burnout. His head was throbbing with pain, and before he could even finish, he just fell asleep right there at his desk from pure exhaustion. It was a harsh lesson, for sure, but a very clear one. Trying to use brute force without passion just isn't sustainable. It only leads to one place: exhaustion. So when David admitted he failed, his father shared that final piece of wisdom. He told him, you just can't force mastery. Think about it. The discipline and the consistency you need to become an expert, it feels almost weightless when you love what you're doing. but it feels impossibly heavy when you don't. That's why passion is the fuel.
So let's put this all together into your success framework. I mean, what does this whole story really give us? It's way more than just a nice little tale. When you put these 3 lessons together, what you get is a really clear, really actionable framework for pursuing mastery in pretty much any field.
So here they are, the 3 steps to mastery. First, you've got to identify your strengths. Remember David on the soccer field? Stop comparing your weaknesses to somebody else's strengths. Second, practice with joy. You got to find ways to practice that you actually enjoy, and the work will start to feel almost effortless. And finally, number 3, fuel with passion. You have to pursue what you love, or find a way to love what you must do. That is the only sustainable energy source for the long journey to the top.
So, what will you choose to master? Look, these 3 lessons, they're really a roadmap. This isn't about being the best at everything. It's about becoming the best version of yourself in the areas that really, truly matter to you. So that leaves one final question, a question for you. What will you choose to master?